Hello, good evening. You are welcome to another edition of Import Export Platform Facebook Live, brought to you by 3 Timpest Trade Academy. We started the conversation. Mr. Adesina Adewale, you are the first to join immediately. Good evening and welcome. We started the conversation a day ago. I think it was yesterday that we started the session on emerging support services for trade customers. We've done 3 parts already. Today is part 4. In the morning, we talked about how service people like accountants, lawyers, and the like can actually render services to trade customers. And the reason basically is because of a lot of things that trade customers do in terms of volume that they have as far as international trade is concerned. Volume in terms of the fact that export volume in Nigeria in 2017 was about 40 billion and import volume was about 28 billion. That's altogether about $68-70 billion just from trade alone in Nigeria. Mr. Adesina, thank you very much. So what we'll be doing today is to continue from where we stopped. In the morning, we're discussing, and remember, my focus in this series is actually on individuals that want to render support services to exporters. I talk about bankers who are looking for deposit, income. They're looking for deposit and income target. They need deposit target and income target, and how they can use trade customer to meet up to achieve that objective. And I also talked about individuals like not just importer and exporter now. Sorry, I'm talking about entrepreneurs who can also leverage on this information about what they can do to support trade customer to also be able to render services. And I specifically spend a lot of time discussing about accountants and lawyers in the morning. I was zeroing in more on the lawyer this evening rather, to talk a little bit more about that. We're discussing the fact that we need to begin to think global in our thinking, rendering services beyond the normal thing that everybody is doing. I begin to look at other areas of opportunities. Oladotun, thank you very much for joining. Good evening and welcome. Other areas of opportunity that can be explored to be able to render those services. And I specifically talked about certified basic trade professional. And the reason for that is also to let you know that certified basic professional is a trade professional certification exam that is for just anybody. You are just coming in, you are starting out in trade, you don't know anything about trade, you want to acquire some skill to be able to render services in trade. And the idea is, if I'm an accountant, I already have an opportunity. If I'm a lawyer, I have an opportunity because I already have some background as a lawyer and accountant. Now, if I now have trade customers, or now I go after trade customers, marketing them for my services, and that's the idea. Writing proposal to them to render services to them. If I'm an auditor, and I'm auditing a trade company, an import-exporting company, I can ask the right question. When I was a banker, I remember vividly people that come to auditors within the bank, internal auditor within the bank, to audit you, they will be asking you questions. They are supposed to audit you, they are asking you questions that suggest that you need to first explain to them what you are doing before they will be able to ask you the right question. What that means basically is, if whoever it is they are coming to meet has skeleton in his cupboard, have things he doesn't want them to know, he can easily hide it. And he can easily bamboozle them with a lot of trade jargons and make them feel, look, what you are saying is not right, it's not true, this is exactly what we are doing, this is the way to do it. And the person cannot question it. Why? Inadequate knowledge of what this is all about. Inadequate knowledge. And that's why we're talking about the certified basic trade professional. Certified basic trade professional. Now, let me talk how these apply to lawyers. And I'll also talk about how it applies to accountant also later on. But today I will talk about lawyers. For lawyers, Number one, it can help them with advisory services. Advisory services. Advisory services as related to contract. You know, sometimes an exporter get a contract from abroad, an importer if we're about to sign a contract for a transaction, and he wants a lawyer to help him review it. But the truth is, a lot of lawyers in Nigeria cannot effectively review sales contract for trade. International sales contract for trade. International trade, rather. Sales contract for international sales of goods, actually. Called this contract for international sales of goods. They can't review it. Why? They will see terms on it that they can't explain. Even when they Google, you still cannot have a good sense of the implication of those terms. A good example of this is Incoterms, for example. Incoterms. Incoterms is international commercial terms that separate transaction cost and risk between buyer and seller. International commercial terms that separate transaction cost and risk between buyer and seller. So what this is saying clearly is that a lawyer will only find it easier to do, to review, if they understand some of these sales contracts. Now, the sales contract on Incoterms is just one of them. There are a number of other ones. Inchedo Adeniro, thank you very much for joining. Good evening. You're welcome. So, there are a lot of other ones that if you do not have a good understanding of what it's all about, it becomes extremely difficult to be able to render that service to that customer. And do you know what? There are some Nigerian importers and exporters that have gotten themselves into trouble. They've signed contract they could not fulfill because they didn't even understand the implication of it when they were signing it. And today, they probably even have lost the business. You know, I told you some time ago that the mortality rate of businesses in Nigeria is high. The mortality rate of trade-related businesses, especially on the export, is off the roof. Especially for export, is off the roof. Why? Because of inadequate understanding. You know, a lot of the business people don't have all the patience at the time to be able to do all this learning. But you as a professional service person, rendering services to businesses, you know this is your job. Their laziness is your opportunity. Their laziness is opportunity. Their inability to sit down and study and learn this thing is an opportunity for you as a lawyer to be able to help them in this issue. Now, another thing is that you can actually build a watertight case on behalf of your customer. You know, sometimes some lawyers go to court with some cases, and sometimes the other party is able to get them to throw it out. How are they able to get them to throw it out? They're throwing out the case because the lawyer does not even have a good grasp of what is presenting and could not really defend that action. And then, of course, the judges sometimes say, look, you don't have, is it what they call local standing, or you don't have, your case does not have a merit, and then, of course, eventually it's thrown out. So you can build a watertight case that will not make you lose that case. Now, you need to understand the fact that, let me give you where the opportunity is for lawyers. A lot of letter of credit transaction tends to have issues. Ugochukwu Obi, thank you very much for joining. Good evening and welcome. A lot of letter of credit transaction tends to have issues. And the kind of issue they have is such that the bank has probably done something that they are not supposed to do, and then of course they now have to pay on that transaction and at the expense of the importer. And the importer feels the bank has done wrong, and the importer takes the bank to court. Now, when the importer takes the bank to court, the court need trade lawyers to defend. So the bank need trade lawyers to defend them. And you know what? A number of them have to get the regular lawyer, who will now have to begin to try to learn and see if they can make some sense on understanding of what it's all about. There is a rule that guides letter of credit, and the rule is called UCP 600. UCP 600, Uniform Custom Practice. This is like a law guiding letter of credit transaction, rules guiding letter of credit transaction, such that every letter of credit issued is decided, the decision on it to pay or not to pay is done based on that rule. What that means is that if the bank make a mistake and the customer take the bank to court, if he doesn't have a good trade lawyer that can help him defend that case, he just finds himself losing the case. Even though the bank has acted wrongly, but the importer is not able to get justice. Why? In Nigeria today, I can't boast that I know 2 to 3 trade lawyers that I know. And I'm in the community of trade people. I think I can remember only one that really understood that he's a banker. I'm not sure the man even have certifications, but he's a banker, and he's a banker that works in trade in one of the old generation bank, and then he's a lawyer. And then he's able to leverage on his legal skill to be able to handle some cases in court. Chinyelu Anya Onye Agala, thank you very much for joining. Good evening and welcome. So what I'm trying to say in essence is the fact that the lawyer can build a watertight case around trade. Remember, we are looking at over 60,000 potential clients for the banks. Sorry, for the importer, for the exporter, and for the banks. Over 60,000 potential clients scattered all over Nigeria who are into either importing or exporting that need the service of this lawyer. Tunji Afuakwe, thank you very much for joining. Good evening and welcome. Number 3 is it creates avenues. More avenue for income for the trade lawyer. More avenue for income. More opportunity for income. So it's a trade lawyer, it's already having clients normally, but now it's a trade lawyer, so he can write proposal to banks that I'm not just a lawyer, I have trade certification from the American Institute of Extended Studies. And then that can back the case. If you are listening to me, you have friends who are lawyers, you need to tell them about these certifications. You have colleagues who are lawyers, you need to tell them about this certification. You have people you know who are lawyers, who are not really pulling their weight within that profession, and they are looking for other opportunities. I'm telling you, there are a lot of opportunity for them within that space that they can harness if only they can acquire additional skill, not to just be a regular lawyer, but rather to be a trade lawyer with adequate skill to be able to defend their client, to advise their client, so they can defend their client effectively in trade litigation. Why? There is a good understanding of trade transaction. There is a good understanding of trade rules. There is a good understanding of what trade entails. There is a good understanding of trade instrument and trade finance instrument. There is a good understanding of the payment method in international trade, the risk and obligation of parties involved, the obligation of the bank, the obligation of the importer, the obligation of the exporter, the risk involved, the fraud cases, and how to be able to protect their client. How to put inside the contract clauses that will help their client prevent issues with their trade transaction. They can also educate the court on trade terms and implication. You are struggling on the road. This is what happened to us last week. Sorry, I'm distracted. Sorry, we're on the road actually. I'm in traffic, so we're having issue with one of these tricycles on the road. All right, back to the conversation. I was talking about the fact that educating the court. You know, sometimes some court issues happen that court need to be educated about the detail of that sector, how it operates, to help the judge to take decisions. They try to subpoena people to come to court and educate the court and advise the court. These are things that the lawyer can do to help the judicial system. So at the end of the day, we have robust legal, what they call it now, jurisprudence. I hope I'm right. Jurisprudence around trade litigation in Nigeria. Around trade litigation in Nigeria. The skill can also help to facilitate a risk-free trade transaction. You know, because now you are able to advise your customers as a trade lawyer in their contract. You are able to help them that you can see into the risk issues, where they could have issues, where they could have losses, where they could have challenges, and then you can properly advise to ensure that they also have signed a contract that protects them. They are able to sign a contract that protects them, that protect their transaction, that protect their business at the end of the day. You acquire skill through this certified basic trade professional. You acquire skill to guide their trade, to guide your trade clients in terms of their in terms stated on their demand guarantee. Now, demand guarantee is a trade finance instrument. Now, this certification exposes lawyers to these demand guarantees. And the implication of that is that they now understand, number one, how to draft demand guarantee. In a simple term, currently they know fairly have an understanding of demand guarantee, of guarantee generally, but you can draft it. You know, you can draft in a simple term and you are still going to cover the risk of your customers, of your client. So it educates the lawyers in a simpler way, a simple, concise, and effective way of drafting demand guarantee. Now, when you also receive a demand guarantee, your customer receives a demand guarantee, you can also properly advise your customer on the terms of that demand guarantee and the implication on those terms. You know, sometimes lawyers get different briefs on different things that clients just want them to advise on, just to be able to take an informed decision. They want legal opinion. And when you have legal opinion around trade, you become expert in advising your customer, seeking legal opinion around contract of hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. But you're able to properly advise them so that at the end of the day, they can minimize their risk. So you can guide your client on trade terms, on the demand guarantee. Then you are able to effectively handle letter of credit litigation. You are able to effectively handle demand guarantee litigation. You are able to effectively handle standby letter of credit litigation. Now, these three instruments I mentioned, letter of credit, standby letter of credit, demand guarantee, are three trade instruments that this certified basic trade professional will expose them to. So they can begin to know the implication of different terms on a letter of credit, on a guarantee, demand guarantee, and on a standby letter of credit. You get to know the difference between standby letter of credit and letter of credit, between demand guarantee and letter of credit. So you can effectively handle litigation around it. And of course, help your customer to win their cases. Then of course, more importantly, you become an indispensable lawyer on trade terms. You know, I know for a fact that when some lawyer gets some briefs, they have to get another lawyer to assist them to work on those cases. Why? Because of their inadequate knowledge in this space. So because now you are going to, you are going to begin to put yourself out there for people to know your area of expertise among your colleagues. And what that does for you is, when your colleagues have briefs that involve trade transaction, you are called. So you are almost becoming indispensable trade lawyer. Indispensable lawyer on trade matters. Letter of credit matters. Guarantee matters. Standby letter of credit matters. Demand guarantee matters. You are becoming indispensable. Whenever they have sales contract to review, you are the first point of call. Whenever they have issue with trade transaction generally, both on the import and export, you are the first point of call. Why? Because of the skill you have acquired. Now, you are exposed to the rule guiding standby letter of credit. The certified basic trade professional exposes you to the rule guiding standby letter of credit. It exposes you to the rule guiding demand guarantee. So you get to know, number one, the dynamics. From the drafting, to the issuance, to the amendment, to the presentation, to the examination, to the payment, to the termination, in all the life cycle of this trade finance instrument. Basically, we are saying you become a star as a lawyer. Why? by virtue of the skill you have acquired. You become a star. You are different from the crowd. You're not just doing the same thing everybody is doing, maybe in real estate, regular commercial law. You are doing something different. This is within the space of commercial law, but you are doing something a lot different than what most of your colleagues will handle. Like I said, you are becoming almost indispensable. Almost indispensable. You know what? Acquiring this skill opens you up to new opportunities in the world of trade. Even beyond Nigeria, can you imagine? Even beyond Nigeria, especially when you have to do litigation outside the country, arbitration issue outside the country, even beyond Nigeria, you can represent your client. You can stand in for your client. You can assist your client. Why? Because you are a certified trade specialist, certified basic trade professional. And it also opens you up to other certification, because when you get in, you want to also get deeper and deeper and deeper to be able to have a complete grasp of what all this is all about. So it opens you up to new opportunities in the world of trade. It protects your client from trade fraud. You acquire skill to protect your client from trade fraud. Of course, you are able to help them review their standard letter of credit and advise them appropriately. You are able to help them review their demand guarantee and advise them appropriately. They are also able to, now this is very important, streamline the wordings in drafting the demand guarantee. Streamline the wordings. Like I said, if you see a typical guarantee, you'll be amazed. It's full of all sorts of legal jargons. But those legal jargons are not necessary again. Now there are ways to cover, there are about 13 areas, about 11 areas rather, that need to be covered, either in a standard letter of credit or demand guarantee. And there are standard way of doing it now. And those are the things you are going to learn when you come for certified basic trade professional. So basically what we are discussing today is how do we render support services to trade customers. Remember, we are talking about banks, how banks can render these services, but now I'm focusing on entrepreneurs, people rendering professional services. We are focusing on lawyer today, probably begin to look at other professions tomorrow, maybe like someone actually chatted me in the morning, is a brand consultant. And he's saying, look, I'm a brand strategist. How do I contribute? How does this affect me? And I said, look, you won't be able to do for import, but you can do a lot for export. Because exporters are looking for buyer abroad. If you're a brand consultant, then you can help them build their brand online outside the country. So if you understand export business management, the export market entry strategies, then you can also help your customer in building their brand, marketing their product and services abroad, and advising them appropriately in that space. So you can see that even as a market communication consultant, as a brand strategist, you can support an exporter. You can support an exporter. You can support an exporter who need to look for market outside the country. And that's the opportunity you have. That's the benefit you have. And those are the things I think you can do. So what I'm trying to do basically is to begin to show as many people who listen to us the areas they can support importers, the areas they can support exporters, and make their transactions successful. And make them to reduce the stress on these people so that we can together grow international trade in Nigeria and of course in Africa. Now, this certification also helps you to understand trade rules. What are the trade rules? UCP 600. What are the trade rules? International standard, international standby practice. What are the trade rules? Uniform rule for demand guarantee. What are the trade rules? International standard banking practice. Now, I'm mentioning different rules. There are rules from the International Chamber of Commerce, drafted and deployed across over 150 countries in the world where ICC have presence. And individuals in these countries are using this rule for their trade transaction. Unfortunately, some of them don't even know the implication of these rules they put on their trade transaction. It is when the ships are down, it is when the challenges come, it is when they are face to face with the issues that they realize that you mean this is the rule on my transaction and this is what I signed for and I agreed to deal in, and they begin to see the implication at that time. But as a lawyer, you can educate your customers on the implication of these things ab initio. just before they even start this transaction. So they have a sense of the implication of what they are going into. All right. Thank you very much for listening to me again this evening. You have listened to the Import-Export platform, rather Facebook Live from 3Think Best Trade Academy. Remember, this program comes up every weekday, 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Tomorrow morning we'll continue from where we stop, and then we'll be looking at other certification programs, and of course how it applies to different different professionals, accountants and the like. My name remains Dele Ayemi, but thank you very much for listening. See you tomorrow and have a good evening.